The soft hum of the survey equipment filled the air as Lieutenant Jack Morgan carefully made his way across the rocky terrain of Kepler 186 F. The planet's twin suns cast an eerie purple glow across the landscape, illuminating the crystalline formations that dotted the horizon like glass trees in a surreal forest. "Anything on the sensors, Martinez?" Jack called to his teammate, who was monitoring the handheld detection equipment. "Nothing organic by Earth standards, sir," replied Martinez. "But these energy readings are off the charts. Something's definitely alive here, just not in any way we understand." Jack nodded and adjusted his breathing apparatus. The U.S. Horizon had discovered this planet 3 weeks ago, and Captain Donovan had been eager to put boots on the ground. As a naval officer reassigned to space exploration, Jack still found it strange to think of himself as one of the first humans to walk on an alien world. "Keep the team together," Jack ordered, gesturing to the 4 other survey members. "We'll head toward that large crystal formation about 2 kilometers east. That's where the energy signals are strongest." The group moved cautiously across the terrain, their boots crunching on the glittering soil. As they approached the formation, Jack felt a strange sensation, almost like being washed. "Hold position," he whispered, raising his hand. That's when they saw it. A shimmer of movement among the crystals, a flowing, translucent creature that seemed to be made of light itself. It floated several feet above the ground, its body constantly shifting between solid and liquid states. "My God," whispered Dr. Rivera, the team's xenobiologist. "It's beautiful." The creature, roughly the size of a large dog, moved closer, curious but cautious. Light pulsed through its body in rhythmic patterns, creating what appeared to be complex designs. "It's communicating," Rivera said, her voice filled with wonder. "Those light patterns must be some form of language." Jack took a slow step forward, removing his glove. He wanted to establish a non-threatening contact. The creature responded by floating closer, its light patterns intensifying. "Sir, maybe you shouldn't," Martinez began, but Jack was already reaching out. As he moved toward the crystalline being, Jack's boot caught on a jagged rock formation. He stumbled forward, throwing his hand out to catch himself. The sharp edge of a crystal sliced cleanly across his palm. "Damn it," Jack hissed, pulling back his hand. A line of bright red blood welled up across his skin. Before anyone could react, a single drop of blood fell from Jack's cut hand. Like a moment frozen in time, they all watched as the crimson droplet descended through the air and landed directly on the alien creature. The effect was immediate and shocking. The alien's body flared with brilliant light, almost blinding in its intensity. The team shielded their eyes as the creature began to pulse rapidly, its entire form absorbing the blood droplet. "What's happening?" shouted Martinez. "I don't know," Jack yelled back, backing away. Everyone maintained distance. The alien's light show continued for several seconds before gradually settling into a new pattern, steadier, stronger, and now with a faint reddish tint that hadn't been there before. It absorbed your blood," Rivera said, her scientific mind already racing with possibilities. "And it's changed somehow." Before they could investigate further, more of the crystalline beings emerged from the formations around them. Dozens of them, all pulsing with light, gathered around the one that had been touched by Jack's blood. They seemed agitated, their movements quick and erratic. "I think we should return to the shuttle," Jack said quietly. "Now." As they retreated, Jack couldn't help looking back. The altered alien remained separate from the others, watched by its kind from a distance. Something profound had happened, something neither human nor alien yet understood. Unknown to them all, this single drop of blood would change everything. The U.S. Horizon's quarantine lab hummed with activity as scientists huddled around monitors, their faces lit by the soft blue glow of screens. At the center of their attention was a sealed chamber containing the crystalline being from Kepler 186 F. 3 days had passed since first contact, and Jack Morgan couldn't tear his eyes away from what was happening inside. "We're seeing unprecedented cellular activity," Dr. Rivera reported, pointing to microscopic images. "The human DNA from your blood is somehow integrating with its crystalline structure." The alien, which the crew had begun calling Prism, was changing hour by hour. Its once purely translucent body now had a core that pulsed with a reddish hue. More striking were the emerging limb-like appendages and what appeared to be the beginning of a face. "It's becoming humanoid," Jack whispered, pressing his bandaged hand against the glass. Captain Olivia Donovan frowned as she studied the readouts. "Is it dangerous? Could this be some kind of biological invasion strategy?" Dr. Rivera shook her head. "I don't think so, Captain. The changes appear to be a natural reaction, not programmed. It's more like our DNA provided something its species was missing." As they spoke, Prism floated to the glass where Jack stood. The alien's newly formed limbs pressed against the barrier, mirroring Jack's position. A pattern of light pulsed across its surface in a rhythm that matched Jack's heartbeat. "It's synchronizing with you," Dr. Rivera said, amazement in her voice. Suddenly, a sound emanated from the chamber speakers, a strange, garbled noise that made everyone freeze. "What was that?" Donovan demanded. They waited, tense and silent, until the sound came again, clearer this time. "Gee, Jack." The room erupted in shocked whispers. The alien had spoken his name. "Impossible," breathed Martinez. "It's learned to speak in days." Jack leaned closer to the glass. "Prism, can you understand me?" The alien's newly forming features shifted into what resembled a smile. "Understand, Jack. Blood changed me." Over the next several hours, the scientists worked tirelessly to communicate with Prism. They discovered that the alien species, which called themselves the Luminary, communicated primarily through light patterns. Jack's DNA had somehow unlocked vocal abilities the Luminary had never possessed. "My people, afraid," Prism explained in halting English. "Say I am corrupted. Quarantined me before your team took me." Jack felt a pang of guilt. "We didn't mean to change you. It was an accident." "Not bad change," Prism responded, its voice growing stronger with practice. "I feel more, see more, but others fear." The alien explained that the Luminary were dying. A strange deterioration had been affecting their population for generations, making each new crystal birth weaker than the last. Their elders believed contact with humans would only hasten their extinction. Later that night, Jack couldn't sleep. He paced his quarters, thinking about Prism and the Luminary's plight. When his door chimed, he wasn't surprised to see Dr. Rivera. "I've analyzed the blood work," she said without preamble. "Something in your DNA is strengthening Prism's crystalline matrix. The deterioration other Luminary are experiencing. Prism isn't showing any signs of it." Jack stared at her. "You're saying my blood might save them?" "Possibly. But the ship's orders are to leave orbit tomorrow. Command wants us to avoid further contamination." Jack clenched his fists. "We can't just leave. They're dying, and we might have the answer." "That's why I'm here," Rivera said with determination. "We need to convince Donovan to let us go back to the surface. Prism needs to return to its people, with our help." Jack nodded, his resolve hardening. What had begun with a single drop of blood now felt like destiny. Somehow, he knew his life and Prism's were now linked forever. Two beings from different worlds connected by something neither science nor logic could fully explain. Captain Donovan's office felt too small for the heated discussion taking place within its walls. Jack stood firm, his posture rigid as he faced his commanding officer. "With all due respect, Captain, we can't just leave them to die," Jack argued, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Not when we might have the solution." Donovan's eyes narrowed. "Lieutenant Morgan, you're asking me to directly violate containment protocols." Earth command was clear. Minimize contact and return for debriefing. Dr. Rivera stepped forward, datapad in hand. "Captain, look at these readings. The luminary are experiencing cellular degradation similar to radiation poisoning, but it's genetic. Something in human DNA, specifically in Jack's blood, appears to counteract this degradation. Dr. Alan Foster, the ship's chief medical officer, nodded in agreement. It's unprecedented. The crystalline structure of Prism's body has strengthened by 47% since exposure to Jack's blood. And the telepathic abilities. Telepathic, Donovan interrupted. Jack cleared his throat. Prism can sense my thoughts when we're in close proximity. Not read them exactly, but feel emotions, intentions. It's how it learned our language so quickly. The captain stood and walked to the viewport, staring out at the glittering surface of Kepler 186f below. After a long moment, she turned back. You have 48 hours. Take a small team, Morgan, Rivera, Foster, and 2 security officers. If there's any sign of hostility from the luminary, you evacuate immediately. Relief washed over Jack's face. Thank you, Captain. The descent to the planet's surface felt different this time. Prism sat beside Jack in the shuttle, its form now distinctly humanoid though still translucent and crystalline. Light patterns danced across its skin as they approached the massive crystal formations that served as the luminary settlement. My people will fear, Prism said, its voice melodic yet tinged with worry. Change is difficult for luminary. Jack nodded. Change is hard for humans too. When the shuttle landed, they were met not with welcome, but with a circle of agitated luminary, their bodies flashing with rapid pulses of light that even Jack could interpret as alarm. A larger luminary floated forward, its crystalline form more elaborate than the others. Prism had explained this was an elder named Spark. They say I am contaminated. Prism translated as Spark emitted complex light patterns. They demand to know why I have been returned. Dr. Foster stepped forward slowly, carrying a portable scanner. May I? He asked, gesturing to the nearest luminary. After Prism translated, a younger luminary cautiously approached. Foster ran his scanner over its form, then compared the readings to Prism's data. It's as we suspected, Foster announced. Their cellular matrix is degrading. Each generation is weaker than the last. At this rate, they'll be extinct within a century. Jack addressed Spark directly. We believe we can help. Something in our biology, in our blood, seems to strengthen your people. As Prism translated, the light patterns among the gathered luminary intensified, some flashing in what appeared to be anger, others in hope. The elder asks what we want in return, Prism said. They fear we will claim their world. Jack shook his head firmly. We don't want your world. Knowledge is all we seek. Understanding between our species. Slowly, the hostile light patterns diminished. Spark approached Prism, their lights intermingling in what seemed like an intimate conversation. The elders will allow testing, Prism finally translated, but only with volunteers. Over the next several hours, Dr. Foster and Dr. Rivera set up a field lab. 3 young luminary volunteered to receive carefully prepared samples of Jack's blood plasma. The results were immediate. Their crystalline structures brightened, strengthened. As night fell, Jack stood with Prism at the edge of the luminary settlement, watching the twin moons rise. My people have hope now, Prism said softly, for first time in many generations. Jack nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. This is just the beginning. There's so much we still don't understand. Understanding comes slowly, Prism replied, light pulsing gently across its surface. Like friendship. Jack smiled, realizing how quickly he'd come to care for this alien being. What had started with an accidental drop of blood was blooming into something profound, a bridge between worlds that neither species had ever imagined possible. The temporary human camp bustled with activity as more luminari arrived each day. Word had spread quickly about the healing properties of human blood, and the initial 3 volunteers had become 30, then 100. We can't keep up with the demand, Dr. Foster told Jack, looking exhausted. Your blood type is compatible, but we can only take so much without putting you at risk. Jack rolled down his sleeve after his third donation of the day. What about the synthetic version you were working on? It's not ready. Something in your specific genetic makeup is key to the process. We need more time to isolate it. A commotion outside drew their attention. Jack stepped from the medical tent to see a large group of luminary approaching, led by a massive crystalline figure that towered over the others. This was Crystal, the most conservative of the luminary elders. Prism hurried to Jack's side. Crystal brings the faction of purity, Prism explained, voice tight with worry. They oppose all contact with humans. Crystal's body flashed with sharp, aggressive patterns as it addressed the gathered luminary in their light language. Jack didn't need a translation to understand the hostility. What is it saying? Jack asked. That humans poison our essence, Prism translated quietly. That those who take your blood are no longer true luminary. That you seek to transform us all into servants. The crowd rippled with conflicting light patterns, some agreeing, others protesting. Jack stepped forward. Tell them we only want to help. We won't force anyone to accept treatment. As Prism translated, Crystal's light became so intense it was painful to look at. The elder floated closer to Jack, looming menacingly. Crystal says your kind will bring more ships, take our world. Says history of your species proves this. Before Jack could respond, his communication device beeped urgently. Captain Donovan's voice came through, tense and formal. Lieutenant Morgan, return to the horizon immediately. All personnel. That's an order. Jack frowned. Captain, we're in the middle of something critical here. Earth Command has reviewed our findings and issued new directives. The luminary situation is now classified as a prime directive concern. All contact is to cease immediately. We've been ordered home. The blood drained from Jack's face. But Captain, they're dying. We can't just. That's an order, Lieutenant. You have 2 hours to pack up and return. The communication cut off. Jack looked at Prism, whose form had dimmed with distress. You're leaving? Prism asked, the human inflections in its voice making it sound painfully vulnerable. No, Jack said firmly. I'm not abandoning your people. Crystal took advantage of the moment, its light patterns communicating triumphantly to the crowd. More luminary began to side with the elder, their forms pulsing in unison. Dr. Rivera approached Jack, speaking quietly. The elder is telling them this proves humans can't be trusted, that we'll leave them to die once we've taken what we want. Jack clenched his fists. We need to finish the synthetic formula before we're forced to leave. A sudden commotion erupted at the edge of the camp. Security Officer Wilson ran toward them, his face pale. Sir, a group of luminary just raided the lab tent. They've taken all the blood samples and research materials. Jack's stomach dropped. Crystal's followers. No, sir, different ones. They moved so fast, we couldn't stop them. Prism's form flickered with alarm. The desperate ones, those too degraded to wait for elder approval. They believe they must take the cure by force. The situation was unraveling quickly. Crystal's faction was now moving through the camp, their light patterns becoming increasingly aggressive toward any luminary who had received treatment. What do we do now? Dr. Foster asked, clutching their remaining research data pad. Jack looked between the departing raiders, Crystal's advancing followers, and Prism's dimming form. He had less than 2 hours to prevent an alien civil war, save a species, and somehow avoid disobeying direct orders from Earth. We split up, Jack decided. Foster, continue working on the synthetic formula. Rivera, start packing essential equipment. I'm going after those samples with Prism. As Jack and Prism hurried away from the camp, Crystal's final message translated in harsh, cold tones behind them. The human lies. Their blood is poison. The changed ones must be purified. Jack and Prism moved swiftly across the crystalline landscape, following the trail of disturbed mineral dust left by the fleeing luminary. The twin suns had begun to set, casting long shadows across the alien terrain. "They're heading for the ancient caverns," Prism said, its form glowing brighter to illuminate their path. "A sacred place forbidden to outsiders." Jack checked his weapon, set to stun, and tightened the strap of the medical kit across his shoulder. Why would they go there? The desperate ones believe old knowledge can help them. "The caverns hold our earliest records from before the Great Transformation." They crested a ridge and looked down into a valley filled with towering crystal formations. At the center stood an entrance to what appeared to be a vast underground network, its opening emitting a faint blue glow. "There," Prism pointed. "The raiders will use the stolen blood there, where elders cannot interfere." As they descended toward the cavern entrance, Jack's communicator beeped again. He ignored it, knowing it would be Captain Donovan, ordering him back to the ship. Time was running out. The interior of the caverns took Jack's breath away. Massive crystal columns stretched from floor to ceiling, each one etched with intricate patterns that glowed with inner light. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "These are memory crystals," Prism explained, touching one reverently. "Our history is stored here, dating back millions of your years." They moved deeper into the caverns, eventually hearing voices echoing ahead. Rounding a corner, they found approximately 20 luminary gathered in a circular chamber. In the center, the stolen medical equipment had been arranged alongside vials of Jack's blood. "Stop," Jack called out, stepping forward. "You don't understand what you're doing. The treatment isn't perfected yet." The luminary turned toward them, their forms flickering with surprise and defiance. One floated forward, older than the others, its form already showing signs of severe degradation. "We cannot wait," Prism translated as the elder luminary communicated. "Crystal would let us die rather than accept help. We must save ourselves." Before Jack could respond, the desperate luminary began exposing themselves to the stolen blood samples, absorbing the red fluid directly into their crystalline forms. Their bodies flared with intense light, causing Jack to shield his eyes. "It's too concentrated," Jack warned. "You need to stop." Suddenly, one of the luminary collapsed, its form fracturing along fault lines. Others began to show signs of distress, their light patterns becoming erratic. "Too fast," Prism said urgently. "The change must be gradual, or the shock is too great." Jack rushed forward with his medical scanner, kneeling beside the fallen luminary. As he worked to stabilize the alien, he noticed something strange on the wall behind them. A massive crystal panel covered in ancient markings, different from the others. "What is that?" he asked, pointing. Prism approached the wall, placing a hand against its surface. The crystal responded to Prism's touch, lighting up with recorded images, not just patterns, but actual scenes playing out like an ancient film. "These are the first records," Prism whispered in awe. "I have never been permitted to see them." The images showed creatures that looked nothing like the current luminary, biological beings with flesh and blood, walking on two legs across a landscape that was lush and green, not crystalline. "Your ancestors weren't always crystalline," Jack realized, staring at the images. "They were biological, like humans." More images appeared, showing a catastrophic event: the planet's atmosphere changing, radiation levels rising, the biological beings suffering. Then came scenes of transformation as the aliens deliberately evolved themselves into crystalline forms that could survive in the new environment. "The Great Transformation," Prism said, its voice filled with wonder. "We chose to become crystal to survive when our world changed. But the elders never speak of what we were before." Jack's scanner beeped with results from the fallen luminary. He studied the readings, his eyes widening. "That's it," he breathed. "Your species evolved away from biological form, but the DNA memory remains. Human blood contains elements similar to your original biology. That's why it's healing you. You're not being corrupted. You're reconnecting with what you once were." As this revelation settled over them, a new light suddenly flooded the chamber. Crystal had arrived with followers, their forms bright with fury. Defilers. Crystal's message flashed harshly. You have violated the sacred place. Crystal's followers spread out, surrounding Jack and Prism. Their light patterns pulsed with threatening intensity, creating harsh shadows across the ancient chamber. We mean no disrespect, Jack said, standing his ground. But you need to see this. He gestured toward the first records, still displaying on a crystal wall. Crystal floated forward, its massive form towering over Jack. For a moment, the elder luminary seemed to freeze, light patterns stuttering as it absorbed the ancient images. Crystal says these are forbidden, Prism translated. Knowledge that weakens our resolve. Jack shook his head. It's truth. Your people weren't always crystalline. You evolved this way to survive, but now that evolution has reached its limit. Dr. Foster's voice suddenly came through Jack's communicator. Morgan, where are you? We've made a breakthrough with the formula. Jack quickly explained their location. Within minutes, Foster and Rivera arrived at the cavern, escorted by Luminary, who had sided against Crystal. We've isolated the key component in your blood, Foster explained breathlessly, holding up a vial of clear liquid. It's not the blood itself. It's a specific genetic marker that acts as a stabilizing agent for their crystalline structure. Dr. Rivera added, the synthetic version should work even better than raw blood. It reinforces their current form while preventing further degradation. Crystal's light flashed angrily, but before Prism could translate, one of the fallen luminary who had taken the raw blood rose slowly. Its form had stabilized, now showing a perfect balance between crystalline structure and a more solid core. I feel whole, the luminary communicated, its patterns clear and strong. For the first time in my existence, I am not fading. Foster approached cautiously. May I scan you? After receiving permission, he took readings of the recovered luminary. Incredible. The destabilization is completely reversed, but the process nearly killed you. Our synthetic version should avoid that trauma, Rivera explained. It can be administered gradually, allowing for controlled adaptation. Crystal remained unmoved, its lights communicating rigid disapproval. But other elders who had accompanied Crystal began to show patterns of curiosity and hope. A sudden rumble shook the cavern, dislodging crystal shards from the ceiling. One large piece broke free directly above Prism. Look out, Jack shouted, diving to push his friend aside. The massive crystal shard slammed into Jack's shoulder, slicing deep. He collapsed, blood pooling beneath him rapidly. Jack, Prism cried, rushing to his side. Foster knelt beside him, medical scanner wearing. The artery is severed. I need to get him back to the ship immediately. Too late, Rivera said grimly, checking her own readings. He'll bleed out before we reach the shuttle. Prism placed crystalline hands on Jack's wound, a look of determination crossing its now almost human face. I can help. Before anyone could intervene, Prism's form began to glow intensely. The light concentrated around Jack's wound, and to everyone's amazement, tiny crystal structures began forming within the damaged tissue, sealing the artery and stopping the blood flow. What are you doing? Foster asked in astonishment. Giving back, Prism replied, voice strained with effort. His blood changed me. Now I change him. The process continued for several minutes, Prism's form growing dimmer as Jack's wound closed completely with a crystalline seal. When it was done, Jack's skin had a faint opalescent quality where the wound had been. Jack regained consciousness slowly, blinking in confusion. What happened? You almost died, Foster said, still scanning him. Prism saved you by transferring some of its crystalline properties to your cells. It's like nothing I've ever seen. A perfect biological crystalline hybrid. Jack looked at Prism, who appeared weakened but stable. You gave part of yourself to save me. As you did for me, Prism replied simply. The display changed the atmosphere in the cavern. Even Crystal's rigid light patterns softened slightly. The elders wished to speak, Prism translated. They have questions about the treatment. Foster held up the synthetic formula. This can save your people without changing what you are. It reinforces your crystalline nature while correcting the degradation. As the scientists began explaining the treatment to the gathered luminary, Jack and Prism exchanged a look of understanding. Their blood, their essence, had mixed, creating something entirely new. A bridge between species that no one could have imagined. Outside the cavern, the U.S. Horizon's final recall signal beeped unanswered on Jack's communicator. 3 months had passed since the U.S. Horizon departed from Kepler 186. Standing on a high crystal ridge overlooking the transformed luminary settlement, Jack Morgan watched the morning light refract through his partially crystalline hand. The wound had healed completely, but the opalescent shimmer remained, a permanent reminder of how Prism had saved his life. "The Earth ship approaches," Prism said, floating up beside him. "Your people have returned." Jack nodded, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Captain Donovan kept her promise. After Jack had refused to leave, choosing instead to stay behind with the luminary, Donovan had made him a deal. She would report his accidental stranding and request a proper diplomatic mission. In exchange, Jack would continue documenting the luminary treatment process and transmission of all scientific data to Earth. "Are you nervous?" Prism asked, its form now a perfect balance of crystalline structure and humanoid features. "A little," Jack admitted. "I technically disobeyed orders, but they can't argue with the results." Below them, the luminary city sparkled in the morning light. What had once been simple crystal formations had evolved into an organized community of structures. The synthetic treatment had saved hundreds of luminary from degradation, and with their renewed strength came a cultural renaissance. "Crystal asked to speak with you before the Earth ship lands," Prism said. Jack smiled. The once hostile elder had become one of his strongest allies after accepting the treatment. "Let's not keep the elder waiting." They made their way down to the central chamber where the Council of Elders gathered. Crystal's massive form glowed with a healthy brightness that had been absent when they first met. "The elder wishes to thank you." Prism translated as Crystal's lights pulsed in complex patterns. "Your sacrifice has given our people new life." Jack bowed slightly. "It was my honor. Our species are more connected than anyone realized." The discovery in the ancient caverns had changed everything. The luminary had once been biological beings not unlike humans, forced to evolve into crystalline forms when their planet's environment changed dramatically. Human DNA contained elements remarkably similar to their original biology, creating the unexpected compatibility that saved them. Dr. Foster approached, carrying the latest batch of stabilizing formula. "The production facility is running at full capacity now. The luminary technicians have mastered the process." Foster was one of 3 humans who had remained behind with Jack. The others had returned to Earth, carrying samples and data that had caused a scientific sensation. "The new ship brings the official diplomatic team," Foster added. "And I hear they're bringing something special for you." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Oh." Before Foster could answer, a young luminary rushed into the chamber, light patterns flashing excitedly. "The ship has landed," Prism translated. The gathered luminary and humans made their way to the landing area, where a sleek diplomatic vessel had touched down. As the ramp lowered, Jack straightened his worn uniform and took a deep breath. A woman in a formal diplomatic uniform descended first, followed by several officials. "Lieutenant Jack Morgan," she called. "I'm Ambassador Wilson. Earth has sent me to establish formal relations with the luminary people." She smiled warmly. "And to deliver this." She handed him an official document bearing the seal of Earth's Unified Space Command. Jack read it silently, his eyes widening. "They're appointing me as the first human ambassador to Kepler 186f. Your actions saved an entire species and opened diplomatic relations that could benefit both our worlds," Wilson explained. It seemed fitting. Crystal floated forward, light patterns directed at the new arrivals. Prism translated. The Elder welcomes you and says that Jack Morgan already speaks for the luminary in his heart and in his blood. Jack felt a lump in his throat as he looked around at the gathering, humans and luminary standing together peacefully. His gaze met Prism's, and he saw in his friend's eyes the same emotion he felt: pride. As the twin suns rose higher in the alien sky, Jack realized that his life had changed forever that day his blood had touched Prism. What began as an accident had become a bridge between worlds, a new beginning for two species who had found each other across the vast emptiness of space. The drop of blood that had changed an alien's life had, in the end, transformed them all.